Welcome, Victor. Welcome, everybody, back to the Twinhammer podcast. We have a very, very special start to the new year here with Victor from Sweden, the Farstalker Kinbad maestro, the master who finished top of the Farstalker Kinbad in the world in Worlds. And so it's our honor to have met you and the Swedish team in Worlds, and to have you here. Welcome, Victor.
Thank you very much. Actually, I wasn't the top because I missed the bracket thing. There was another one, but he had a slightly worse result, if I remember correctly.
Well, yes, I mean, you finished with the top result, results of Farstalker Kinbads. We're gonna ignore the weird bracket thing that they had in Worlds because
don't get me started.
Yeah, I think that was one of the only minor sore points for the Worlds attendees was this kind of weird after the first 6 games you were kind of locked into this bracket, so even if you performed well in the last 4, it didn't really have any effect on people's standings, so it's kind of weird.
Yeah, it's a very weird choice. I have no real idea why that was a thing, but
yeah. Well, we are officially announcing you as the top Farstalker Kinbad player. We are writing that in history right now.
Yes,
and
sure.
It's amazing. We were chatting a little bit right before the podcast today, and I have just done my Christmas Crute, Christmas with a K, and I'm going to be taking them to a tournament this upcoming weekend. This is going to be my opportunity and everybody in the world's opportunity to learn from you, hopefully dive into the team a little bit, get your feedback on the TAC ops, on how they play in the new crit ops, and then just jam out here. But yeah, we were talking a little bit about the Swedish scene and where you're from. Maybe you can tell us again. So you're from Malmo, and there's a Swedish scene in Copenhagen. They're kind of twin cities. So you're just saying you're going to a tournament. Tell us about the tournaments in Denmark.
Yeah, so the scene in Malmö is small but dedicated. We are like 12 regulars who play, and then over in Copenhagen there's a much larger scene. I think they are like 40-50 regulars, so they host tournaments on a very regular basis, so Swedes tend to go over and play with them as well. And we have I think we arrange one tournament every quarter or something like that here in Malmö. And there's a very small scene in our 2 major cities in Sweden as well, Gothenburg and Stockholm.
And how far are those from you, if you were to go to there?
It's like an 2 hour to Gothenburg, and it's like 4 hours to Stockholm.
That's not bad. And the trains are pretty good there too, right? Like
hop on the trains are very reliable, except in wintertime, but of course.
You would think they'd be winterproofed a bit, but
snow is apparently always a surprise.
Yes. Even in Toronto, and we've been in Canada, we had 2 years ago the most mild winter ever. There was like barely any snow. I was like, I don't need a winter jacket anymore. Last year, we had snow like crazy, that we never had in 20 years. So everybody was like slipping, sliding, like nobody was ready for any snow last year. So it was crazy.
It was the return of winter.
Yeah. Thomas just made a winter Volcus, just all winter.
Nice.
So that's why the Christmas Crute are in this winter theme as well, and we're building a couple more winter. Have you had a chance to do any hobby as of late yourself?
No, I'm working on my stealth suits currently. These I've actually been playing the last like 10 games I've played has been with the stealth suits, but they are not done yet. So they have been playing them with grey plastic and black undercoats so far.
That's okay. Every team starts somewhere, right? And you're sticking with the Tau theme, so
yeah,
there you go.
And spoiled for choice with when you're a Tau player. Like 3 different teams is a luxury.
Yeah, and very nice different flavors to each of them too. Yeah.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah, and really nice looking teams, all of them too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of teams and Tau, we'd love to hear your thoughts on the Farstalker Kinband.
Yeah.
or Kinbad, as Alex has
Yeah,
been
yeah. I
calling.
always like Sinbad, Kinbad.
It is one of the longer names of a kill team to get through, but
Yep.
we could just call them Crute as well. That's a simpler way. But tell us what made you pick up Farstalker and get into them, and what drew you to the team?
Yeah. Well, I'm a really old. I've been a board game nerd for like 25 years, and so I played a couple of games on the first edition of the Kill Team, but then I had to move cities due to work, so I lost the opportunity to play. There were no scene at all in New City, and then I moved cities again, and the second edition came out, and I started, of course, with the Tau Index team. There were some stealth suits. There were fire warriors.
I played the Compendium team as well. In that they were my second team after Corsairs.
Oh,
Because I love the fact that you could add in like a little bit of stealth suits, some drones, some fire warriors, some pathfinders. So it gave you this nice mixed feeling. Because I was like, oh, Corsairs are a little hard. Let me see if I can maybe do a little elites, a little bit of this. So it's like a nice smorgasbord of like choice. Yeah.
Yeah, I had a really great time with the Compendium team.
Did you ever try playing the stealth suits only?
Oh, yes, it was terrible, but it was fun.
Yeah, it was a massive struggle because they were only 2 APL each.
Yep. No, but then of course the Pathfinder box came out, and since I'm playing Tau in 40k, my cabinet behind me, I bought the Pathfinders and played them for a couple of games, but I kind of hated playing them. They were so strong, and I wasn't the funniest playstyle, just sitting back and shooting people off the table. So I kind of lost interest in Kill Team for a little while. I didn't feel like picking up another team. But when the Crute box got announced, I was really excited, because that looked like to be more my kind of team. And so I bought the box, I assembled them, and I've not stopped playing them since. So I think,
wow.
Yeah, so I have a couple of 100 games of Crute below my belt at this point.
Woo! That's got to be up there in the world 100%, and that's why we always say in Kill Team, like, the reps make the success, right? And you have to accumulate that number of reps in order to, obviously, good information and good strategy, but even if you know the best strategy, Kill Team is so open-ended. There's so many different variables that you need to have like chess the next best move, right? So
yes, and my opinion of the team is also, it's a very glass cannon-y kind of thing. I think it's one of the strong. It's a very strong team, but it quickly falls apart, even by like one or two mistakes or bad rolls can just tumble the entire house of cards. So I have done a lot of losing when I initially started the team. I have to say that there were a lot of rough games before I got to my formula with winning with them.
Nice.
Absolutely. And I'm like a mid-range team enjoyer, like 10, 11 models. A lot of my favorite teams are on 28 millimeter bases, which the Farstalker Kinband are as well. And it does take a lot longer to get to a good formula and good like sequence strategy with that type of team than it maybe would for an elite, because you have a lot of operatives that you need to make sure you're sequencing properly, and even with 12 models on 28 millimeter bases, even just like making sure you're placing them all, deploying them all properly, because it's hard to fit them all behind the cover with that base size and that many operatives. That can be a bit of a challenge. Yeah, so it does take a lot longer to get there, and it's very interesting to hear about how your formula. So what was your initial take on the team, and how did you end up? What things did you end up gravitating towards? Like, what are your two most important things to get right with the team, would you say?
You have to, the big thing is you have to project what score you're getting. I play a very, let's say, planned style. Like, immediately when the game starts, I am counting on losing kill up by 1 point, so I'm 2 points down on the kill up. And then I have to construct my game plan. I will be scoring 3 points more than my opponent on crit and tack up combination. So you have to be very finely tuned to get those right, because you fail like one attack up and then they score one extra for your primary and you're losing the game. So get a plan. You have to get a plan immediately, because you have essentially 12 specialists in the team, with a little variation, because their warriors really are a kind of specialist in this team. So you have to, as you said, the deployment is very important, because that's the start of your plan. You have a specialist in the wrong location. He is not doing what he needs to do that game, so he might as well be out of the game already.
Yeah, and it's very key, especially with those big teams. Like, I've always been a guy, like, I played Void Dancers at Worlds, and that was nice for me because I have relatively 8 models that can do very similar things, and so that tends to be a little bit of an easier time to go in without a absolute set plan, because each model can do. But when you have 12 specialists and they're all, you have that sniper needs to be in the right place. You have the dogs versus the warriors, which we're going to ask you about as well. But that took you, how many games do you find got you in a sense of, okay, now I have a general plan? And we're going to ask you about the kill op as well, because you mentioned that the Crute will be 1 down in kill op. So at what point did you start realizing, like, okay, the strength of the team is the crit op and the attack op? They're a little weaker in pure damage output. How did you come about that?
Well, the journey started in 2nd edition, but then we didn't have a kill up, so you could play with the help of Poach, and 12 operatives, 12 activations was very strong. So you could play and still make sure you won the crit up and your secondaries quite easily. And so it was actually a big, I lost like 6 or 7 games, I think, at the start of 3rd. Because the adjusting to the kill up, because you could no longer just suicide a Crute to get a point. You have to suicide a Crute, you have to get at least like 1.5, 2 points for it to be worth it. So I had a lot of changing, actually going more defensive, more keeping back my resources at the start of the 3rd edition.
And there was a change, I noticed, that it was very big in the 1st and 2nd. We're very big in the past edition, the 2nd edition, and now really you have to start looking more towards turns 3 and 4 and being a little bit more conservative in that 2nd turn, right? I think that's kind of what everyone was figuring out, but it sounds even more important for the Crute as well.
Yes, I usually my setup at turn 2 is like 2 or 3 of my operatives are actually going outside of my deployment zone. It's a little bit of an exaggeration, but that's more or less the basic plan. Like 2 or 3 of my operatives are actually going a bit closer to the middle. The rest of them are staying quite far back, because I can't afford to lose a lot of operatives turn 2.
That is a very good point, because my main mistake still, even at Worlds, was I was like, I don't see any threats. I might as well put up a few extra guys just in case I might need them, because Exaction didn't have the best kind of like movement. Yeah. So I said, you know what? I think I could add some more guys into the mid board. And then lo and behold, my opponent always found some way of getting extra shots on my guys. And then I would get blasted, like flamered. And that's a good point, where it's like, if you only really effectively need 2 or 3 to do what you need to do on that turn, hold everybody back. And it's kind of goes against your intuition, because you're like, oh, I want to get involved, right? But in Kill Team, Blast and things like that are just some of the most powerful things in the game. So if you have these wider teams where you have more operatives, that's kind of your worst enemy that you have to look out for. So because then it's like literally duplicating their shots with Blast and stuff like that. So even though Exaction could take a hit, I also felt that that's a very important thing. And then one of my takeaways was, you know what? I should just keep back. Only the most essential guys are going up, and then the rest can filter in eventually. And I guess that's how you proceed as the game goes on.
Yeah, because my playstyle with them is very much, as you said, the trading my operatives for points, and I can't afford, like, there are only so many points I can get on the mid board and in the close. So I'd only need 2 or 3 to trade that turning point. So there's no... One of the issues with the Crute team, we'll probably get into it later as well, is there's a problem with a difficulty with projecting threat. I have very few operatives that can go into your side of the field and kill one operative. Usually I need 2 or 3 activations to kill an enemy operative, which means it's very hard to assault someone as well. So I don't have any use for 3 or 4 clustered operatives close to the middle, because I just can't get in there and do something with a good rate of success, at least.
Yeah, it's almost easier for your opponent to come kill a few of yours in one shot than it is for you to go and kill one of theirs in one shot. So
yeah.
Do you find yourself playing a little bit more counter punchy because you have the activations to kind of wait them out?
Yeah, usually depends on the matchup. Into horde teams, I have to play aggressive, but against horde teams, I have the option to play aggressive as well. Against everything that isn't another horde, I usually play very, very reactive, usually letting my opponent come to me.
And now that things have shifted, right? We went into 3rd edition, kill ops started coming into effect, and the turns started becoming a bit different. The rule set got completely changed for everybody's teams. Like, there were certain simplicities, adjustments, and things that were enhanced. Before going into the new crit ops and how you're enjoying the new crit ops and tac ops, what did you find was the biggest change rule set wise from last edition to this edition? Did it make it more enjoyable? Like, the Warriors seem to have got a little bit of an upgrade on their data cards and things like that.
Oh yeah, the Warriors got a lot better. Otherwise, there were very, very few changes to the team. They switched my faction ability to a strategic ploy and a strategic ploy to my faction ability. So it's like I have the same things on the team, it's just in different places.
And did you like that switch from, like, now the going back to conceal is now your faction ability, whereas what became was it bound or?
No, it's a rogue, the one that gives you double cover saves and ignore saturate.
And did you like that switch?
Yes and no. I mean, usually I spent the command point for switching orders every single turn anyway, so that was nice. But the switching orders thing is harder against all hordes, because one of the great weaknesses of the crew team is against anything that is like 11 or 12 activations, I don't have a faction ability. Because if you don't out-activate anyone, your model is not safe shooting. And with 5 up armor save and 8 wounds, I just have to assume I die if anyone shoots at me.
Wow. Yeah, and then I guess you would play that strat ploy for having some cover against horde teams, knowing that you can't switch as many back. So the double cover save is the rogue, right? It's ignore saturate and retain an additional cover save, or you can retain one as a critical.
Yeah.
Right?
So it's a side grade in a lot of ways. It didn't make a lot of difference, but the positive thing is against all the teams I out-activate, I don't need to spend command points on switching orders, and I never pay for the cover save, because they're kind of counter to each other. If I'm switching back to conceal, I don't need cover saves.
That's great. And which going into kind of like any operatives, obviously the Warriors got upgraded, but what operatives are your favorite for damage dealing, and what kind of ways do you threat project? We know that it's limited 3 APL because you just have that 1 per game ability to go to 3 APL, right?
Yeah, I have a comms guy as well.
Oh, a comms guy as well. Okay. So
Cinch, I believe,
yeah. So you have 1 independent once per game. Do you take that, by the way, the trophy for?
Oh yes, that's the one I never leave at home. It is so good.
Yeah, just your damage dealer. If you need that extra dash, or you need, maybe would you even to get that threat where you can actually get into the range where you can do a mission action as well if you need. That's good.
Yeah. And my favorite operative is what it's called, the Dvorgaid Skinner.
Ooh.
the Melta-Flamer that nobody ever respects until it hits them.
Is that the one with like the sexiest looking gun on the whole team?
Yes. Oh, yes.
Yeah.
It's a piercing 2 with 5 attack that hits on 2s and a 3/3 damage profile. So no matter what you shoot at, it's delivering 12 damage on average.
That's incredible. Yeah, hitting on 2's 5 attacks, piercing 2, torn 2, which means you get lethal 5 on Tomb World.
Oh yes, it just deletes people, and you haven't lived until you hit 3 Marines at the same time with that weapon, and just here's 36 damage.
And did you do that at Worlds? Did you hit 3 with the Skinner?
No, unfortunately, I didn't get to do it at Worlds, but I've hit nobody actually spaced any Space Marines next to each other at Worlds.
Yeah, and Worlds is probably the least chance. I mean, if you get to Worlds, you probably learn not to put 2 Space Marines in blast.
Yep.
But yeah, so the Skinner, tell us a little bit about how you use the Skinner, which is for everyone at home, is the Crute heavy gunner, and the one profile is the Dvorgaid Skinner. It is reposition heavy, and with a range of 6. So how do you go about setting that up?
He's usually my counterpunch for my home objective and can get to the middle objective in case I need it. So he's usually far back, like in my deployment zone is where he spends turning point 1, 2, and sometimes even turning point 3. He is just there to anything that touches my point is getting deleted.
That's awesome, and it's really like talking about skills in Kill Team is like understanding where your value of the piece will be, because it sounds like you don't take the long range tribalist very often.
No, it's just if I ever get to play on Beta Decima, that's the place where the tribalist will shine. But so far, it's so much heavy cover, and he will never get a long shot off to be of value.
Yeah, I've also found like in teams that have snipers with heavy, I find that I prefer something a little bit more mobile that can actually move a little bit to get a hit off, because with all the heavy, like you're saying, and with Volkus and Tomb World, sometimes even visibility is hard to get.
Yeah.
So if you're kind of locked into stationary things, like good players, they'll just like find an angle where you can't quite see them, and it's quite hard. So I could see how just like having a 6-inch counter punch, like you essentially have a 12-inch threat range kind of thing. So yeah, and sometimes just the threat of that to be like, okay, you want to come kill this one Crute? I got this thing just waiting for you.
Oh, you want to trade a Crute for a Space Marine? Please.
Exactly. And then probably the sweetest thing would be like getting maybe like a shot last activation turn 3 into like first activation of turn 4 if you win initiative. Then you're getting maybe you had double value out of that. So I've been really trying to get my game like honed in on, if I'm facing an elite, which there's plenty of, we need to use every advantage we can if we're playing mid-range teams. So you really have to try to line up that last first if you really can, especially with the new initiative.
Yeah.
Because then you can kind of say, okay, like I'm pretty certain I'm going to get initiative here. So if you can stack it for that last turn and get that sweet double play, then you're getting the most value out of that important piece.
Yeah, exactly. He is usually, it's either him or the Bowhunter. That's usually my last activations, depending on.
Yeah, the Bowhunter is a very interesting profile too. It's got three different arrows. That's kind of a cool profile.
That's badass. I think anyone looking at that Crute team, and Victor, I have a story about the Crute. Mm-hmm. My first kill team ever was going to be either Phobos or Crute. And I stood in the store for 3 hours looking at like, I had the Crute box. This is the new Crute box, but I had the Crute box, I had the Phobos box. I literally, Victor, left the store without buying them. I couldn't decide. I was like, if the Phobos are here tomorrow, I'll come back and I'll get the Phobos. If not, universe chooses Crute for me, right? Because the Crute for me, they looked the most badass. Both the Crute, like pirate Crute, that's badass. And the two things you always see is the Dvorgaid Skinner and the bow. And that is like, oh my god, these are like some of Games Workshop's best models. So
Yeah.
yeah, so the going back to the bowman, how do you use the bowman?
He's usually he's the most mobile one, since he has no heavy or anything like that. So he is usually my mobile threat handler. He has to like get up to get strange angles, and he's usually the one that's threatening the opponent's home objective, because the sniper, it's usually impossible to get the sniper or Dvorgaid Skinner to have any kind of vision or range to their home objective. So that's usually my bowman's job.
And do you use any of these good weapon profiles? Do you use them in synergy with the bird, for example, like the bird, the guy, the tracker? So you're like, okay, I got my tracker. He can like light up anybody who comes in this kind of area.
I mean, usually people just take the bird as the threat and never positions near any kind of light cover at all. And so the birdman is usually I just tell them, like, I can get the seek light, and they keep out of all kind of light cover.
That's nice, because it's more like a psychological area of denial at that point.
Yeah. And since the bowman is also very nice when he goes late in the round, since you can switch him back to conceal, he usually gets to fire his piercing 1, 4, or 5 profile most of the time, which is fantastic.
That's awesome.
Oh yeah, it's like a long range crack on 3s.
Almost, yes. Yeah. Usually with severe and ceaseless as well, when you're playing it right.
Yeah, and speaking of hitting on 3s, I was browsing through the team, and I had noticed that they all hit on 3s in melee as well, which for a horde is pretty good.
Oh yes, and the strat ploy that gives all of them an extra attack in melee makes all of them credible threats, or somewhat credible threats as well.
No, I was gonna say, because 4 attacks on 3s, 3-4, team wide, 12 operatives, pretty much, like that. It does give you that ability to kind of reliably get that punch when you need it in melee, which can be probably quite handy. And was that a recent update, that one of the updates this edition where they had gone increase attacks?
Yeah. I can't remember what the strat ploy that replaced, but the old team did not have the extra attack thing, if I remember correctly, at least.
Does that apply to Crute Hounds?
Oh yes. So Crute Hound, the Stalker, the cut skin, and the leader goes to 5 attacks, all of them.
So they all hit like Space Marines with fists.
Oh yes.
That's amazing. That's just an amazing visual in my mind, where they're all like, yeah, they all just eat an orc and they're like, yeah, let's go.
Oh yeah.
No, but it's I think Space Marines have 4 attacks.
Oh, actually, yeah.
So
they just naturally...
so when your melee specialists are going to 5, that's really good. And because for me, Exaction, the non-melee operatives, like the outside of the ones that are dedicated to Castigator Subductors, the rest of them have like 2-3 batons that are hitting on 4s, and it's like 3 attacks. So it's like, if you get into combat with them, I'm not even doing really any damage. No. Whereas if, like, I could assume that, like, if someone's coming into combat with a few Crute, like, you're leaving them with like a little bit of damage on the way out as well.
Yeah, and we have a fight first ploy as well. That's a little bit tricky to use, but that lets us be really, really annoying to charge into as well.
Because you could do like either 6, 7, or 8 damage depending on the way out.
Oh yes.
Yeah. And then do you have a preference now for the Crute Hounds or the Warriors? Are those your choice? Obviously specialists you want to keep, but are you swapping every game with those two in terms of this like ability? Sometimes you want the melee threat here with the 5 attacks. Sometimes you need like better long range shooting.
Yeah, the big part about the Warriors is their always have access to the stun ammunition, which is the huge part in many matchups. But the dogs I leave at home against anything that fights twice, because their ability to counter charge and force people to fight the dog instead doesn't work when the opponent can fight twice. Like, they will just kill 2 Crute instead of 1, which is not great.
Yeah, and like when I play Goremongers, I got my golden ticket with Goremongers, and I played Crute one match, and it felt very much one-sided in terms of my ability, even with my gunmen, to just fight twice with everyone.
Yeah.
Do you then have to get the second box in order to get the warriors? Because I think I've built the box, but it only came with a certain number of warriors and then the 2 dogs.
Usually you need to get the second box anyway if you want to be fully compliant, because the Stalker, is it the Stalker, and there's 2 operatives that share a body, 2 of the specialists.
Oh, yes.
I can't remember which ones. And you usually, if you want the Dvorgaid, if you want the Londaxi Tribalist thing, you need that for a second box as well. So usually, if people ask me, I usually tell them you need to buy 2 boxes. You could do it with bodies from a regular carnivore box as well, but it's going to be a little bit harder.
And do you have a lot of Crute in your Tau army for 40k that you just had available for you?
Yes.
Yeah.
I have about 40 Crute, all 9 Crudox Riders, and I've bought 3 boxes of Farstalkers in total, and I think I have 10 dogs or something like that.
That new Crute release that came out, was it last year or just the year before? It was just so good. So I remember seeing that and just be like, that's so epic, man. The Crudox they made look incredible. Like everything they released was just like, wow.
And the guy on the salamander, the long sight,
yes. And all the new character sculpts are fantastic as well. So I loved that.
It was amazing. I saw it on your Swedish compatriots there, Squidmar. Yes. He made like a Crute army which was like Tau, and he even to have the heavy weapons, it was like the Crute on a dragon, like taking that down. So
that army is beautiful.
Are you only a Tau player, or you have any other armies?
I have so little time to hobby, so I have only managed to put a Crute army together or a Tau army together. If I could, I would either go Orcs or Emperor's Children for a second army.
Ooh, nice. I mean, those are both amazing model ranges too. Emperor's Children just came out with the new sexy model range there as well.
Yeah, I'm waiting for their first kill team, actually.
Yes. Could be in one of the upcoming releases. We don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So for Tau in 40k versus your kill team, how do you enjoy the 2 different experiences? Obviously, you came to Worlds for kill team. Have you been prioritizing kill team over 40k in terms of your gameplay, or you kind of enjoy both of the games?
I'm not enjoying 40k Tau currently. It's a lot of you kind of a difficulty leaving your deployment zone mostly, and in 40k that's not very fun play style. I enjoy it in kill team with Crute and stealth suits, but for some reason it doesn't scratch that itch in 40k. So I've actually been heavily prioritizing kill team for the last year or so.
And do you find your community, like obviously the Danish community is big in kill team now, which is fantastic, but it's easier for you to get games in, obviously easier to like get the stealth suits, kind of paint them up. And what we're finding is like we love kill team because it gives you that access to really diversify and have different factions, whereas in 40k if you wanted a different faction, it's like an entire year worth of hobbying that you have to do just to get to 2000, right?
Yeah. No, I love that about kill team. I have I have my Vespid, I also have a Rekka crew team that I'm working on simultaneously with the stealth suits, because I wanted a different kind of vibe from the Vespid and the Crute, and then the stealth suit came along and delivered that as well. So it's been great. I love having access to different playstyles with a relative ease.
Yeah, we've been loving that. I think we were Warhammer Fantasy players before.
Oh yeah.
And for 10 years, we were like 13 to 23. We played just Bretonia and Empire. And we were always looking at all the other teams, all the other factions. We said, one day, I wish I could start something, because you never would want to buy it without trying to get the army. There was only the large formats. So Thomas, 3 years ago Christmas, found Warcry, and he's like, it's back and we have skirmish now. And I was like, no way, we should probably try a game. We tried a game, Victor. We were addicted right away. Like what,
Nice.
40 Warcry warbands, and now like 35 or what are
Well,
30 kill teams later. Here we are.
Warcry, it's like it's very very easy to put a team together, and the thing is, it's like a lot of these we repurposed like some of our old fantasy models into warbands, right? So it's like you have like an army of like 100 models. You're just like, I'll take a little group, make them look different now, and then I can play them in a different way. So it's a very like liberating experience because you're like, well, it's not gonna. It only took me like 1 week to go from like idea to finish. Like if I like use like all the if I'm efficient with things, like at least getting them table ready, like we've got a lot of stuff done in relatively quickly, which before was never even a feeling you'd ever have. It's like,
Yeah. You're like, I got 10 spearmen painted. This is great. Yeah.
and then you're like, oh, 30 more to go.
Yeah, I'm regretting getting rid of my old fantasy orcs like 10 years ago or something like that. But it would be great to have them now.
Yeah, we've been playing. Last year we got back into the old world, so we actually broke out our older armies and started a couple new old world armies. But yeah, it was nice to get back into the vibe. But every time we come back to Kill Team, we're like, okay, this is a lot quicker, a lot less setup, and it's generally like, even from a tournament perspective, just a lot easier to approach because you're only like nice little case, you're bringing them in, it's so easy to do. So we've been really enjoying the skirmish. And as you were saying, you even got a taste of the orcs. Like, you don't have to get a full army now. You have the Rekka crew, you can get that nice taste. And they've been a nice team that kind of in the recent buff has seen good quality of life improvement. And I would say part of the appeal of Farstalker right now is they're one of those teams that are a little bit lesser known, that have gotten these multitude of buffs quietly in the background. And I think that they're in a very good spot now, and they're quite an interesting team with a lot of different abilities to kind of probably give you quite a different flavors, like that flexibility between melee and shooting and things like that. How do you find, because Exaction has this way of accumulating buffs so that the team slowly can get better results, how do you use like the kill broker and kind of like pray to get that efficiency?
Yeah, because they are the key to dealing any real damage, more or less, in the team. You have to get your kill broker to work for you, because when you're doing it right, the entire team has balanced, and when doing it wrong, he does nothing. So it's that's a very hard, and I still fuck that up on the regular, to be honest. But it has to be because sometimes the opponent has a tendency to run away with the model that you mark, and so you have to be a little bit cautious with it. But usually, the model that needs to die as quickly as possible gets my mark. That is the easiest way to put it.
And yeah, because Inquisition has the exact same thing where you would have the Corey, Corey strap ploy. And so you stack the kill broker. Is the kill broker used only for that? Like, you keep them fairly conservative for that benefit?
Yeah, the balance is so important to reliably get because the damage profiles on the team are rather weak. Like, shotguns are 3-3, all the other shooting is like 3-4. So you have to have the reliability to get like 3 or 6 damage through good armor saves. So usually my kill broker hangs out far back, actually close to my Skinner most of the time, because he's the only one with a 4-5 melee damage profile. So he's a very good counter charge threat as well. So I actually use him for that a lot in the later stages of the game.
Very nice. And if you have the kill broker's ability up with a mark, then your prey gambit will give you actually ceaseless against that, because your prey gives you balanced and severe, and then you'll have ceaseless and severe basically, which can do a lot to kind of probably up the output. Yeah.
Oh yes, and that puts the sniper above all else gets very, very lethal because since he's up with his heavy profile, if he's shooting, he's getting the prey benefit. And when he has lethal 5s, ignore obscuring, and hits on 2s, he also deals a lot of damage very reliably into any target.
And do you find yourself bringing cracks as an equipment with the ability to stack? No,
I know people talk about it on Discord and like bringing crack. I hate it. If I need piercing, I am taking the piercing ammunition, so my entire team can use it every turning point. But I rarely take the piercing. It's only against Space Marines and 3-up saves, more or less.
So you would take the piercing regularly. You would take, obviously, trophy we discussed. Are you taking toxin shot regularly?
Toxin shots is the most regular after the trophy, I have to say, because usually the piercing one is a bit strange. I usually don't shoot people that are not already getting shot by my skinner, my sniper, or my bowman, and they already have piercing or can't use the ammunition. But the stun is so important to playing the crit up, so that I almost never leave behind.
And so you are utilizing the combination of stun with the warriors who have leverage to the toxin shot every shot, and then on a key moment where you have the ability to stun somebody, it's like an elite has gone on an objective and you've got to now score that objective, and you are stunning them to get like control. Basically.
Yeah. The very nice thing about the warriors is their ability works even if you haven't selected the equipment. So they always have access to the stun, and they can use it an extra time if you've used it. So usually I have access to 2 stuns every turn, which is actually why the Felgor matchup is... I haven't lost the Felgor matchup ever, actually. Due to the double stun every turn. But that matchup is also a razor's edge of keeping alive and keeping away and stunning the right models.
I don't think there's anyone on planet Earth that can say they've never lost a Felgor matchup. So
yeah, I've only played it 4 times, so it's not that crazy. But yeah.
But I mean, it's good to know, because Felgor seemed to be one of those teams that could cause a lot of trouble for Farstalker, because I played Ratlings for a tournament, and very tough. You have similar aspects, but if you kill them, they're not dead, so they'll just come and kill 2-3 rats easy, right? So
yeah, and with the Felgor matchup, it's the combination of the stun ammunition plus switching back to conceal. Because you shoot them from like more than 3 inches away or behind cover. As you shoot them, you stun them, they die with only 1 action, and you're back on conceal. They can't shoot you, so they can't do anything really. So you can kind of negate the entire frenzy mechanic with the good planning and the use of stun.
That's very interesting. That's a really, really cool use of it. Because it's like they go from 1 APL to 0. They can't use that frenzy, right? So that's quite interesting. And speaking of stun, and how you said it kind of helps with crit op as well, where you would probably have better control over objectives. Probably one of, like, we haven't even touched on it yet, but probably one of the greatest strengths of Crute that's kind of maybe more widely known is their use of poach. To be able to go in and not even have to control an objective and be able to do a mission action, right? Or action or pick up marker, right?
Yeah, and the beautiful thing about poaches is it's for the entire activation as well. So on more than one occasion on like loot, I have sent a warrior in with a reposition on the point, and then he loots and retrieves in the same activation from under the feet of a Space Marine.
Wow.
Yeah. That's really cool. Yeah. That's really cool. And you have access to recon and infiltration?
Yep.
Yeah, so that's like the best combo to have with a thing like poach. Now with like plant device as well.
Yeah. I've played all 6 different attack ops on different occasions in tournament settings. So they're play with all of them. You need to find the correct timing, of course. But all of them have some kind of play at least.
Well, that's an incredible strength and probably a point of enjoyment for the team, because like I remember playing Jaegers. Are one of my favorite teams, but previously they'd only had like one or two tac ops, so they didn't really like invite you to play them because you're like, well, I only have the one play style and maybe it's not my favorite. So the fact that you have this ability to kind of be flexible and probably unpredictable is a good thing too, because if everything is kind of doable, then your opponent's going to have a hard time trying to guess at what you're trying to do. Have you found that your opponents have been surprised at your choices in certain games?
Yeah, people never expect scout enemy movement. I can tell you that. But that's also very rare that I pick it. It's like specific Volcus maps against like Deathwatch or Canoptic Circle that you can play scout enemy movement.
And it's good with 12 operatives. I had to play Canoptic 4 times in my group. I had 4 Canoptic. I played all of them.
Yep.
And I had a good time on flank, but as soon as I got to the narrow map, I was like, oh, I don't know if flank would work. I tried in worlds mid tournament to try scout enemy movement with void dancers. I was like, worst decision I ever made. This is like guaranteed loss for me right now. But
usually, I have to say, when I take scout enemy movement, I usually pick crit op as my primary, because people tend to deny you your attack op above the crit op.
And that's very interesting, because you're like, if you come onto that middle objective, I'll see you. And then they're like, well, I don't want you to see me. And then they're not on the objective. So that's quite nice. Yeah, that's quite nice. I do like that interaction between the different scoring routes, the different scoring paths. And that's probably one of like my most enjoyable and intriguing things about this current edition of Kill Team, is because you have those 3 different paths. I enjoy this edition way more than last edition, because I found last edition was a little too straightforward, where it's like, oh, okay, I'll sacrifice these 2 guardsmen to GA2 and do 2 loots, and then like there's no negative really. Whereas now it's like if you throw those away, you have to kind of balance the points in your head, and so it's a more fluid and intriguing kind of balancing act. But it does mean you have to have way more of a plan, like you were saying.
Yeah. This edition, I love this edition way more than the second edition for the same reasons you said. And I actually think they improved with a new the approved ops pack. It was a great improvement as well, even though it made things very much harder for Crute. It's still, the games are great.
Yeah, well, I found that all Kill Team games are different. I never play the same one twice. That being said, do you have a highlight that you remember in terms of these new crate op, new tac op from Worlds where you were particularly happy, proud with the team you were playing against and your execution on it? Take us through like a couple of your favorite games with Crute.
I had a rough game against Joshua Kelly. He was my second game, and it was, I don't know if you have it in front of you, but Tomb World 1. Which is like your 2 home objectives are opposite each other, and there's a corridor in between.
Yes.
Yeah, he was playing Canoptic Circle, which makes that corridor very difficult for me, not difficult for him, because he can teleport through walls. And we were playing, to my detriment, we were also playing loot, which makes it even more harder, because there is no chance in hell I am ever looting his home objective, even with poach or anything, because I cannot get there without dying first. So it was very initiative who gets to loot the middle point each game. But I took him to the last turning point. He needed to win the initiative to win the game, and I had the advantage of winning if we roll evens, and I had the re-roll card as well. Both of us had +3, so that Doke's cancelled out. So that gives me about an 80% chance to win the game. But of course, he rolled a 6, and I re-rolled not into a 6. But I took Canoptic Circle on a bad map with a bad crit op to have to win a 20% die roll. I am very happy with that result. Like, I can't play that game any better.
That's really impressive. Yeah, 100%. And Tomb World 1, it's like it's got that double wall.
Yeah.
It's a very interesting one. I had a great game against Alex from Spain, and that was just such it was Corsair's Exaction, and he was threatening my back point by flying through both of those walls with the Shape Runner. So it was it's a fun map. It's can be a little bit intimidating if you don't have ability to get through walls. Well, you do have access to a couple of operatives who can. Do you have any one mission action less operatives? Nope. So I guess the Skinner is the only one who can.
Nope. Because they have a stipulation that you can't have torrent.
Because of the torrent. Yes. That is the one. That is the one example of the one you can't use.
Yep. Ooh, so I have no. Right. I mean, I have a comms guy and I have the trophy, which lets me get a third APL any place, anytime. So I have some ways to get through it, but otherwise, no sheep preaching.
That is interesting because that's one of the few teams that probably doesn't have a way to reduce the breach on Tomb World. Because most teams will either have like that piercing 2, or they'll have like an operative that can do a mission action for less or something like that. But I guess if you set it up in a way, because you have 12 bodies, it maybe is not the biggest kind of imposition.
No, it's in the third APL any place, anytime. Like I position a guy behind at the breach point. If they come to the breach point, I can breach it for 2 and crack the trophy and shoot him. So it's usually not that of an issue, but you just have to plan ahead for it.
And is there, based on Worlds and the new crit op and approved op, are there matchups you're finding naturally more difficult with Crute, other than obviously Canoptic are like a little bit of a problem until they get touched even more?
Actually, I am 7-1 against Canoptic currently, so the only loss is against Joshua Kelly on that map. They have a very, very hard time denying flank against Crute.
Yes.
And they have only attack op that works is retrieval, so you just have to defend your home point with like 3 or 4 bodies, and they are scoring 4 on their attack op, and you are scoring at least 5. Is my experience with the matchup, at least. Awesome. So Canoptic has been great, and I faced Canoptic 3 times at Worlds as well, and except the Kelly match, I won both of those very, very easily.
Ooh, nice. That's actually, a lot of people can't say that either. So that's really good. A
lot of teams struggle into that matchup, yeah.
I have to say, there's a caveat there. I think that if a really experienced player with Canoptic that also has experience against Crute plays the matchup, I think I am maybe just slightly favored, like 55-60% favored to win. So I think my 7-1 record is a bit skewed due to my opponent's inexperience with Farstalkers.
Yeah, that can't be an advantage when it's so hard. Even like with Exaction, not many people had played against Exaction, and they break the game in a few different ways. So even if every game I'm like giving my opponents this huge presentation on all the rules, and I'm trying not to forget anything. It's too much. Even if you tell your opponent everything, it's like too much for them to intake all the way. So it's like one of the interesting things about Kill Team is like the fact that if you do come up against a team and there's so many, it's a fresh experience, because you're like, well, what do I have to look out for this team? And it's very hard if you're facing a team for the first time to know exactly what to do. And sometimes the interactions are so specific that you do need to be aware of these things. Like if you let your guard down against Crute, they'll come and poach your thing, and you're like, oh, I didn't see that coming. Yep. And like, oh, I thought I would be, I was banking on that APL. Now I'm stunned. Now I can't do anything. So it's like, it's really, really cool how that Crute have the nice little kind of ability to do things that are unexpected.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
that being said, I was gonna say, like, any other matchups that
Yeah, the difficult matchups are other Horde teams. You don't have a faction ability against other Horde teams, and your 5-up saves with 8 wounds. You are dying to any competent shooting, more or less. So other Horde teams are hard matchups, like across the board. All of them are difficult one way or the other. And on Into the Dark or Close Quarters maps, the teams that are faster than you are also can be quite challenging. Because usually you use on Volcus and other open maps, you have the bound strategic ploy, which makes it too cheaper to climb for the entire team. which essentially makes you an 8-inch movement team, which is huge. But that doesn't really work on the close quarters maps. So you lose a lot of your mobility and the threat projection.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's probably one way to get an asymmetric threat is through poach on Volcus. Like, I'm always looking for teams like to be effective. Like, what ways do you have to create these asymmetric threats? And that ability to get poach, like whenever I'm facing a team that has access to like reduced climb, it's one of the things that can take me off guard the most. Is like all of a sudden they're up a building and they're in my lines, and I'm like, well, where did you come from?
Yeah, it gets even meaner with the dogs that have 8 inches of movement innately. So they have a charge range of 10, which makes it 12 with bound strategic ploy. So it goes very fast, very quickly.
And do you utilize the dogs in terms of their ability to play those pickup missions?
No, because the sad part is like that ability is so good, but there are no really useful uses for it. Like they can't do the retrieval, the first basic pickup. Of course, they can pick it up if someone drops it. And steal intel is usually, you don't want your dogs in like the back line picking up items. If you bring the dogs, you want the dogs charging, attacking, or guarding other operatives. So usually you don't get to use the pickup, but it's so good when you can do it. It's very, very strong. Because you can do it in the middle of a movement. So you can, on Tomb World, you can go through a door, pick an item up, go back through the door in the save movement action, which is fantastic.
That's really good. If they could do plant device or something.
Yeah, or just do the first.
That would be incredible because it gets your reach to the back objective, like.
Or the retrieval action. I mean, they're dogs; they can retrieve. Come on, please.
It's odd that they wouldn't have specified, like, or any like, if they make the retrieval action, just specify that it's also the pickup action, pickup marker. Because I think once the person dies, then it becomes the pickup marker action. But initially, like you were saying, it's not. So I think that they should make it like that, just to add that extra flavor. Yeah.
Were you doing recover item with them before with that?
Yeah, of course it was map dependent because your opponent gets to place 2 of the items. But I had a pretty good success with the recover items with the dogs.
Awesome. And you came with Ulla, right? In Sweden. Were you the only 2 Swedish kill team players?
Yeah, it was only us 2. We didn't have a single golden ticket tournament in Sweden last season, so to speak. We're looking to get a couple this season, so hopefully a couple of Swedes will be coming next year.
That's amazing. And then hopefully a couple Danes too.
Yeah.
You kept the Danes out.
Hey, 2 of them choose to not come. That's their choice.
That's the narrative that they chose. Yeah. But I want to honor, like, honestly, it's incredible. Like, everyone from a native English speaking country kind of has an advantage. I think like Swedish, like the fact that you're so absolutely fluent in English is like incredible to be able to play like the full kill team, which is a very complex game, in not your first language. Thomas and I speak a few different languages, like Italian we grew up with, but for us to play kill team in Italian would be a whole new challenge. So it's incredible that you're so fluent in it, and so many of the countries came to the Worlds and were able to do it in English. So
yeah, it was fantastic. I have no issues with any players at all. The only one was the Chinese player I faced, and he had a translating app which worked anyway, so no problems. It was great.
And is everyone in a kind of younger generation is completely fluent in Sweden in English?
Yeah, more or less. We have to teach it from like age 9 all the way up to the end of high school or our equivalent. We have a few movies and shows that are in Swedish, but mostly it is English media. So we get what's it called, by just living in it for our lives.
Yeah, you just immersion.
Yeah, that's the word. Yeah,
the English media. Yeah, that's interesting because we don't quite realize, like if you're in an English speaking country, you don't realize how big an impact the English media is having everywhere. You just kind of assume, I think in this day and age with like I guess probably the age of internet has made it so that English, being that kind of first internet language that brought the world together, it kind of incentivized a lot of countries to kind of invest more in learning English, and it's just it's incredible. It makes the world feel so like so close. It's such a wonderful feeling that we could just hop on a call and talk to you, and just it makes it feel like really, really cool. Yeah.
In Denmark, are you speaking English in the Denmark tournaments, or are you speaking Danish? This is my question.
Well, our languages are technically very close to each other, so we can mostly understand each other without English, but my Danish is terrible. So I sometimes have to switch to English just to be sure to get the correct point across.
And so you play in English, or like when you went to the tournament to get your golden ticket, was that a Danish language tournament, or was that English?
Mostly English for my part, but there, I mean, if I would switch to Swedish, I don't think it would be any real issues, because most of it is anyway showing naming the English rules, because we don't have a Swedish translation of the game. We're playing it completely in English, so most of it would be fine in Swedish or Danish.
I didn't realize there was no Swedish translation for Warhammer.
I mean, we're a small country. We're like 10 million inhabitants in total. It's not surprising that nobody paid someone to go through all of the rules in Swedish just for that.
But big on the Warhammer stage, obviously with Squidmart. Is there a big hobby store culture in Sweden?
Oh yeah, we have there's in my city there's three hobby stores at least, and there's a couple of other hobby that keeps more general sewing and like painting, more like canvas painting and stuff like that also have miniature painting supplies. So I can probably get miniature painting supplies at 8 or 9 different spots, even though my city is rather small, internationally speaking.
Yeah, and there's a big Warhammer community in general,
Yeah, there's we have like our major tournament, 40K tournaments are like 100 people at least. Every major tournament is filled up, always sold out. So it's a big 40K scene.
That's incredible. It seems like an incredible it's for me really interesting to see every country and how Warhammer is expanded and built there. And I know we're just over an hour here, and I don't know if Thomas has another question, but what would be your final thoughts on Farstalker Kinbad for a guy like me who's about to do a tournament with them, who doesn't have access to the Warriors yet, for example?
There's 2 more tricks to be very, very aware of. The combination of the pistolier and the dog. Pistolier gets to shoot you if you shoot him first, and the dog gets to countercharge you if you charge him. So if you guard the pistolier with a dog, there is no real way of attacking the pistolier without getting shot or charged by someone else. So he's a very, very good either middle point or home point security, because he's very hard to assault. And he gets even harder if you bring the stun ammunition. Because a Space Marine runs up, shoots him, he shoots him first with the stun ammunition. He's going down to 2 APL, so he's not doing a third action. That's a turning point, which means even if the pistolier dies, that Space Marine is not clicking that point. He's not contesting it if you place another model there. So it's a very good trap to use. And the last operative is the veteran. What's it called? Cold Blood. He's a very unique model in Kill Team overall, because he has 1 extra wound, so he has 9 wounds, and he lowers all crit damage to normals, which means he can tank 2 hits from power swords and chain swords without dying. So he can be very annoying for people to shift without realizing how hard he is to shift. Because if someone charges him with a power sword, roll 3 hits, he rolls 1 hit, he's not dying.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so of course you have to line it up, because if someone hits him with a 5-6 profile, he dies like a shum.
Yeah, but he would be like a nice one to kind of soften up an elite so that like your Skinner could come in and light them up, or your sniper could light them up easy.
Exactly. And just someone to throw out on the midpoint at the end of turning point 2. Place him there. Is going to be hard to shift with just one activation from the enemy, and you can usually counterpunch with something.
And a last point here: do you have certain groups that you put together? Like if you divide the board into 3 lanes, for example, do you have certain groups for deployment that you start with?
Yeah, usually, like I said, the Dvorgaid Skinner and the leader is usually staying at the home point because the leader's ability is important and the Skinner has a short range. So they usually stay there and are accompanied by like a warrior or my comms guy or something else that's rather immobile. Then usually the sniper and the pistolier and a dog and the cold blood is usually the midpoint objective kind of guys, because the sniper, usually you can have a sight line from your deployment to the midpoint, so he can guard the midpoint for if he needs to counterpunch at the midpoint. And as I said, the pistolier, the dog, and the cold blood are good at being very difficult to shift for the opponent if you score it. And then the Bowhunter and a few other like melee operatives, the Stalker and the Cutskin, are usually going, if I play attack up that needs to go to the opponent's objective, it's usually the 2 melee operatives that are going that way. And the Bowhunter is kind of mobile, so he has to keep an eye out for the opponent's flank.
That's really good, and all the good plans start with good deployment plans, right?
Yep.
So, yeah. So I'm like so excited to go finish painting the next highlight layer on the Crute. Nice. Thank you so much, Victor. That was so informative, and like it's really, as Thomas was saying, like it's incredible to be able to hop on and have this call and to meet you at Worlds. We didn't actually have a chance. We always were seeing each other in transition. We didn't have a chance to sit down and have this ability to get to know you is awesome.
Yeah, same to you. We just managed to say hi, I think, a quick pass by. It's been great as well. I've really enjoyed this, and please let me know how your first Crute games have gone. It would be very nice to hear from someone who's testing you out for the first time as well, since it's been years and years for me.
I'm gonna have to have a direct Discord line to you and just be like, well, to the Crute mothership, can you feed me some of this genetic code, please? I need the superior genetic code.
Take a photo of the map. Please help with deployment.
Yeah. No, Victor, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on, and we're so glad we were able to do this. And it's amazing learning about the Swedish scene and getting your wisdom on Farstalker Kinband. And we look forward to keeping in touch and seeing how everything's going this year. And this has been amazing. And thank you for joining us on our first official video of the new year. And we're super happy to have kicked it off with you.
Well, thank you very much, and it's been my pleasure as well. And maybe we'll see each other on Worlds come autumn again.
We'll lock it in right now. We're gonna bring it to reality. Locking it in. See you at Worlds. Thanks everybody for watching. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
If you're interested in the stealth suits or the Wolf Scouts or Death Watch or Canoptek, Tomb World, or anything Kill Team, as well as anything hobby, any hobby supplies, our friends at Top Shelf will take care of you extremely well. So check them out. Link in the description below, and they will help you out very well. Speaking of covering all of your Kill Team needs, we are honored to also be featuring Crossfire Games products on our channel. I had the pleasure of playing Nick, the owner of Crossfire Games, as my first game at Worlds. He was playing Chaos Cult, an amazing guy, and he produces all of these incredible products for Kill Team. There is a lack of these products in the official main range, and Nick has gone and designed these dream products for Kill Team. Everything you could want to bring with you to your Kill Team games, custom tokens, everything that there's a lack of in the main range. Nick has gone above and beyond to design exceptional quality products to help you out with your kill team games. So we have, as you can see here on the screen, a number of incredible products. The most show-stopping product is the Battle Box. It basically can carry your team. It can carry all of your dice, your tokens, your cards. It can have the tracker as well as a card holder on top. Your kill team magnetized in the main body of it. It has a drawer for the cards on the bottom. It has a dice tray with dice holders on either side. It has token holders to represent your strategy ploys, your crack grenades, your stun grenades, smoke grenades that you need. It's literally everything you could want in one box. It has an exceptionally good quality handle that is super, super high quality you could bring around with you. We can see here we have an incredible array of tokens you can also get. Right now, there's no product for individual tokens, but Nick has gone to fill that void with exceptional quality tokens that are available in these incredibly nice colors: green, orange, white, black. And he has also designed this incredible foldable gauge for measuring, which is amazing. This card sorter, which is really, really incredible. He has this whole sorting tray here. The lid is actually the score tracker, which is just incredible design. And he has very, very fun custom dice. So the target, Crossfire Games target for the 6, and then an angry symbol on the bottom for when you get a 1. So very, very fun dice. And I've seen these products in action at the World Championships. I saw a lot of people with them, and I was just incredibly in awe of how amazing the quality that these products had and just the convenience. I'm a huge organizer. I love organizing everything, and this just was like everything I could want. So, organizer's dream. This is an incredibly good product for the holiday season. This would be an incredible gift to give someone that you know loves Kill Team, and we are just very happy to be featuring this on the channel. We have a code in our description. There'll be a link for 10% off from the Crossfire Games website. If you use our code in the description below, you'll find a link to the website with an automatic 10% code for you to purchase products there. And we are just so excited to be featuring these products on the channel. And big thank you to Nick for all of his amazing work. And we are just so excited to be featuring these. Thank you so much for watching. Let us know if this was helpful and you learned something you didn't know before.